Hello, and welcome back to Scary Stories Channel, a place where real stories prove that fear doesn't need imagination to exist. Tonight, you'll hear two true encounters that began in ordinary places. In the first story, a teenage girl takes a familiar shortcut through the bush and realizes something may have followed her home. In the second, a quiet afternoon nap ends with police, death, and a closet that never felt warm again. Turn down the lights. These stories are closer to reality than you might like. The night the bush followed me home. This story will tell us about a shortcut that was never meant to be taken, and about the kind of darkness that doesn't stay behind when you escape it. Some memories fade with time. Others stay sharp, waiting quietly until something, a sound, a shadow, a dream, brings them rushing back. This is one of those memories. I was 16 when it happened, old enough to feel independent, young enough to believe the world was mostly harmless, especially the places I thought I knew. I grew up in a quiet Australian town, the kind where bushland presses up against suburban streets like it's trying to reclaim them. My house sat directly across from a narrow dirt road that disappeared into thick trees. It wasn't officially a path, just something locals used. If you took it, you could cut 10 minutes off the walk between my place and my boyfriend's house. At 16, 10 minutes felt important. My boyfriend at the time was my close friend's older brother. We'd been friends long before we were anything else, and his house was familiar, comfortable. That night, we'd been watching a movie in his room. One thing led to another, and we both fell asleep without meaning to. When we woke up, the digital clock glowed 10:57 p.m. His mum had a strict rule: no sleepovers, especially not for girlfriends. He walked me to the front door, gave me a quick hug, and said goodnight. I remember feeling annoyed, not scared, when I stepped outside alone. Looking back now, I realize how strange that is, how fearless I thought I was. The long way home meant streetlights and houses, but it took over 20 minutes. The shortcut through the bush took half that time, so I crossed the street and stepped onto the dirt road. The night was unusually bright. A full moon hung low in the sky, bathing everything in silver light. It was one of those nights where the moon feels close enough to touch. The light filtered through the trees, breaking the darkness into shapes and shadows instead of pitch black. A cool spring wind moved through the leaves. Late September in Australia often feels like that, crisp, restless, alive. At first, everything felt normal. I walked at an easy pace, hands in my jacket pockets, boots crunching softly against dirt and gravel. I was more focused on the moon than my surroundings, watching how the branches swayed like slow-moving waves. I was just past the halfway point when everything changed. The wind was still there, I could see the trees moving, but the sound vanished. No insects, no rustling leaves, no distant cars, nothing. It wasn't gradual. It was as if someone had flipped a switch and muted the world. My steps slowed. I remember listening to my own breathing, suddenly too loud in my ears. Every instinct told me something was wrong, but I kept walking, telling myself I was being dramatic. Then the feeling hit me. A heavy, sinking dread settled in my stomach so fast it stole my breath. I stopped walking without meaning to. My body froze, locked in place, while a cold sensation crawled up my spine. It felt like being watched, not imagined, not guessed, known. My heart pounded as my mind argued with itself. Run. No, Turn around. Don't panic. Don't look. I should have run. Instead, I turned my head. Standing several meters behind me on the path was a figure. It was tall, too tall, thin in a way that didn't feel human, like its shape was wrong, stretched unnaturally against the moonlit road. It wasn't a shadow. Shadows don't stand on their own. This thing had presence. The darkness around it felt thicker, heavier, as if the light avoided it. And then I saw its eyes. They glowed. Not brightly, not like headlights, but enough. Enough to know they were locked onto me. The moment our eyes met, my body reacted before my mind could catch up. I ran. I don't remember deciding to run. I don't remember turning around. 1 second I was frozen. The next, I was sprinting down the path, lungs burning, heart slamming against my ribs. The silence followed me. My feet barely seemed to touch the ground. Branches scratched at my arms as I tore through the bush, every shadow stretching into something threatening. I didn't look back. I couldn't. All I cared about was reaching my street. Lights, houses, people. Somewhere real. When I burst out of the trees, I didn't slow down. I vaulted my back fence, scraped my hands on the wood, and ran straight to my bedroom window. It was slightly open. I shoved it wider and climbed inside, nearly tripping as I landed on the floor. Only then did I turn around. The yard was empty. The street was quiet. Nothing stood at the edge of the bush. But the feeling didn't leave. That deep, crawling sensation of being watched lingered, heavy and oppressive, as if something had followed me right up to the boundary and stopped. I barely slept that night. Every sound made me flinch. I only drifted off when the sky began to lighten, exhaustion finally overpowering fear. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. The room I slept in used to belong to my older sister. She'd moved to the front of the house, and I'd taken her old bedroom. The window never closed properly. Something I later learned was because she used to sneak out at night and had damaged the latch so it could be opened from outside. That same window had let me in so quickly when I came home running. A few nights later, I woke up suddenly, not from a noise, not from a dream, from a shift. The air in the room felt different, heavy, charged. My eyes snapped open, my heart already racing. The window was open, just a little. I knew I had closed it. I'd checked it twice before bed, still shaken from the night in the bush. Slowly, I got out of bed and crossed the room. I pushed the window shut without looking outside. I didn't want to see anything. After that, the nightmares started. Every night, the same theme. The window sliding open while I slept. Something trying to force its way inside. I'd wake up soaked in sweat, heart pounding, convinced I'd heard movement. Eventually, I stopped sleeping at night altogether. Daytime felt safer, lighter, real. Desperate, I wedged a piece of wood into the window track so it physically couldn't slide. I even had my brother test it from outside. It didn't move. After that, the window never opened again. But I never walked through that bushland either. Not alone, not with friends, not even during the day. Years later, I told the story to a close friend and his partner, who is Aboriginal. When I described the figure, his expression changed in a way that chilled me more than the story itself. He said he believed I might have seen a mokoi. In some Yolngu beliefs, a mokoi is a malevolent spirit that inhabits dense bushland at night. It's associated with sickness, death, and misfortune. They're said to move fast, remain unseen, and stalk quietly. He told me it was unusual that I saw it at all, Then he said something I still think about, that sometimes, if you escape, the darkness doesn't let go. I'm 30 now. I live an hour away from my hometown with my partner and our dogs. But sometimes, I still have that dream. I'm back in that room. It's dark. The window begins to slide open, and I hear the soft, hollow thud of wood hitting the frame, like something is testing the barrier. Even now, when the night goes quiet, too quiet, I feel that same shift in the air, and I wonder whether the bush ever really stopped watching. Some encounters don't leave marks on the body, only on the mind, and some paths, once taken, never truly release what walked them with you. If this story made you think twice about shortcuts in the dark, remember, not every presence wants to be seen, and not every escape means you're safe. Thank you for listening. Sleep well, and be careful which paths you choose when the night grows silent. The closet that never warmed. Again, this story will tell us about an ordinary afternoon that quietly turned into a dividing line between the living and the dead, and between what can be explained and what refuses to be. Some deaths are loud, others pass almost unnoticed until they leave something behind. This is one of those stories. Years ago, I lived in an old house that had been split into 4 small apartments. From the outside, it looked charming in a tired sort of way. Peeling paint, crooked steps, a driveway just wide enough for 2 cars to squeeze past each other. Inside, though, the place felt wrong. Not haunted exactly, just worn thin by time, and too many lives lived on top of one another. My bedroom shared a wall with the neighboring apartment. More specifically, my closet shared that wall. The building was old enough that privacy was more of a suggestion than a reality. I could hear muffled conversations, doors opening and closing, footsteps pacing late at night. And she lived alone. My neighbor wasn't someone I knew well, but we were friendly. We'd exchange brief hellos in the driveway, nod politely when passing on the stairs. She was a mother, though her kids didn't live with her. I knew she'd had a rough past, and I knew she'd recently had surgery. Beyond that, I didn't pry. The day she died, I was home alone. I'd laid down for a nap in the early afternoon, the kind where you don't fully fall asleep, just drift. I remember waking suddenly to noise, a lot of noise, voices overlapping, someone yelling, not arguing, screaming. At first, I thought it was a fight in the driveway. Still groggy and disoriented, I sat up and rubbed my eyes. Then I heard sirens. I stood and walked to my bedroom window, pulling the curtain aside. An ambulance was parked in the driveway. A small crowd had gathered. Neighbors, people from nearby houses, strangers craning their necks. And then I saw it, a body covered by a white sheet. They were loading it into the ambulance with a kind of careful urgency that told me everything before my brain fully accepted it. Still half asleep, I grabbed my phone and texted my neighbor in the apartment beside mine. "Hey, are you okay? There's a lot going on outside." I stared at the screen for a moment before something clicked. She lived alone. Her apartment door was shut, taped off. My stomach dropped. I walked to the front door to let my dogs out, still trying to process what I'd just seen. The moment I stepped outside, everything escalated. Police cars lined the street. Yellow tape blocked off the block in both directions. A CSI van was parked just beyond my line of sight. Before I could say a word, I was surrounded. Cops started firing questions at me. Fast, clipped, urgent. Had I heard anything between 2 and 3 p.m.? Did I see anyone come or go? Any unfamiliar vehicles? Any yelling? Any movement? I shook my head, stunned. I told them the truth, that I'd been asleep, that I hadn't heard a thing. One officer asked me again, slower this time, as if my answer might change. It didn't. I asked what had happened, knowing full well they wouldn't tell me. They didn't. I was ushered back inside with instructions to stay available. When I closed my door, my phone exploded. Messages, missed calls, panic. Friends who lived nearby had seen the police and ambulance. They could see my house from down the block. They thought something had happened to me. I spent the rest of the afternoon answering texts, trying to reassure everyone, while quietly realizing how close I'd been to something terrible without even knowing it. The truth came out slowly. My neighbor had relapsed. After her surgery, she'd reached out to her ex, a dealer, and asked him to come over. He shot her up with heroin. When she began to overdose, he didn't call for help. He just left. Her current boyfriend came over later and found her body. I learned these details over the next few days, as people reached out to me asking the same questions the police had. Mutual friends, old acquaintances, even the father of her children, who also happened to be my tattoo artist. Everyone wanted to know if I'd heard anything. And that was the worst part, because the wall between us was paper thin. I always heard her door, her footsteps, her TV, her voice on the phone. Sometimes arguments, sometimes laughter. But that day, nothing. No thud, no cry, no movement, just silence. Life slowly returned to normal outside. The police tape came down, the driveway emptied. Another tenant eventually moved into her apartment. But my apartment never felt the same. A few weeks later, I noticed something strange. The closet, the one that shared a wall with her old apartment. Every time I opened it, a wave of cold air spilled out, sharp and immediate, like stepping into a freezer. At first, I laughed it off. Old house, bad insulation. But it wasn't just a little cold, it was freezing. At least 20 degrees colder than the rest of my apartment. In summer, it felt like winter lived inside that small, dark space. I told my landlord. He shrugged, said it was probably insulation, and claimed to have fixed it. Nothing changed. The cold stayed. The closet had a small light bulb inside, and no matter how many times I replaced it, the same thing happened. It would flicker, irregular, almost nervous, then burn out after only a few uses. I tried different bulbs, different brands, higher quality, same result. Every time I opened that door, the air felt heavy, still, unmoving. I started avoiding the closet altogether, grabbing clothes quickly and shutting the door as fast as I could. I never saw anything unusual inside. No shadows, no shapes, just cold and silence. Sometimes late at night, I'd lie in bed and swear I could hear something on the other side of that wall. Not a sound exactly, more like pressure. Like the sense that something unfinished was still there, waiting. Some places don't forget what happens inside them. And some walls don't just separate rooms. They hold on to what passed through them. I don't know if that closet was haunted. I don't know if it was grief, guilt, or coincidence. But I do know this. The day my neighbor died, something in that apartment never left. And whatever it was, it made itself very comfortable on the other side of my wall. Those were two stories about moments when normal life cracked open and something darker slipped through. A presence in the trees, a death behind a shared wall, and the lingering feeling that some events never truly end. If these stories unsettled you, there are many more waiting for you here on Scary Stories channel. Subscribe, keep listening, and be careful what you ignore when the world suddenly goes quiet.